Right, so we've got a 2010 Mini Cooper S, coming half engine light. Scan for codes, and we've got this code here, 3401, engine oil pressure control valve activation line disconnection. Ignore the rest. Now, on most of the BMWs, the oil pressure control valve is actually inside of the engine block. Fairly straightforward to replace. On this Mini, they have decided in their wisdom to put it inside the oil pump. So you can buy this valve separately, however the valve itself is 3/4 of the money of what the actual oil pump itself is anyway, so I figure we're going to take the valve out, we might as well just change the oil pump over at the same time. So oil pump is obviously situated inside the sump. You can see that wiring loom just up there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but just up there is that is the wiring loom, and you can see where it comes out the back of the engine block here. So that disappears up the back of the engine. So it should be interesting to get to the wiring loom. So first things we're going to do is take the sump off, undo our 8mm bolts all the way around. This sump has been off recently, which is just sod's law. Undo our 16mm bolt here so we can release this exhaust system. Try to move this aside so we can get to the bolts. Don't want to have to take the engine mount if I can help it, but we may have to do something to get to that wiring loom, maybe remove the drive shaft. But we're going to drain our oil out first and then obviously get our sump off, and then we'll see where we are. But you can take this off without taking the exhaust off. Ideally you want a swan neck 8mm spanner to get into these ones that are above here, but it's a bit tedious, but you can do it without taking the exhaust off. So we're going to drain the oil, obviously get the sump off, and we'll come back. Right, so we've got our sump off, and here is our oil pump. Now we can see our solenoid in the end, and the wiring loom which comes around, goes up and disappears out, and comes out there and goes out the back of the engine. So now we're going to need to remove this plastic cover from the drive, the chain behind here drives the oil pump, and then we've got obviously to remove this cable. I mean, this cable feels rock hard, like really brittle, so I'm not surprised. I mean, this engine has had the stem seals done recently because of the breakdown, because they've gone rock hard, and this cable feels the exact same, so I'm not surprised it's causing an open circuit. So I'm going to pull this plastic cover off, which is just clipped from behind, as you can see. Pull this off, get to the chain sprocket, and then have a look and see where we are. I'm going to have to try and get up here and get this bolt out up here. Looks like a Torx drive from what I can see. Pull this out to get the loom out, so I'll come back in a sec. Right, okay, so we have a sprocket off of the old oil pump, which is here. Now that is a T45 in the centre. This bolt is normal thread, so lefty loosey. It's very tight, very tight. So what I did was, obviously when it was on, I put a screwdriver through one of the holes and locked it up against here. So when you're turning, obviously the screwdriver's locking up against here. To undo this, you will think you're going to snap the bolt off, and it will make some creaking noises, but it will come off. So once you've done that, you can take that off. Now this is on a keyway. You see a little flat spot there, so it only goes on in one direction. Obviously that's our plastic cover that we popped off. So we have now got up here can see, but up there, the bolt and the cap that was covering that is here. T25 bolt, so the cable goes through there. That's a pain to get to, but a bit of persistence, wind that out. So now we should be left with this, if you like, the cable here where it goes in. You can push through like so, and the cable we'll have to, you can see the plug is there. Now this was sat on this thing, sitting up like that on the back of the engine block with the cable coming up here. Now I've popped this pin out from underneath, just pushed the screwdriver up and popped it out and pulled it off so I can get access to where the plug is. So hopefully now we can just unplug and pull the cable through the hole. And our next step will be to undo this bolt, and then this bolt, and the oil pump should come off. So we'll get our cable out and drop our oil pump. Right, so our oil pump is now fitted. Let's just sprocket back on. And we fed our cable back out the hole, bolt back in, and plugged our cable back in up there. So obviously we've cleaned off all of our sump face to reseal our sump. Old oil pump is down here. I mean, this cable is very brittle, so I'm gonna look at the state of it. It's not really in best conditions anyway. So obviously, old oil pump out of the way. Obviously, we're gonna now clean all of this off, reseal our sump, and then get our sump back on with our new bolts. So obviously the replacement of it is just a reversal of taking it off, obviously. But this, I say, you can buy this separately, but I figure that, well, for starters, it looks disgusting. And if this is obviously worn out, whatever, then the pump's probably not in greatest conditions anyway. So change the whole lot over. So if you get that fault code, this is where the problem's going to lie. So it's worth singing a new oil pump in it. So that's how you do it. Get the sump obviously sealed up and put back on, and hopefully it should solve the problem. So we're going to do that now, and we'll come back and the sump's all back on. Right, sump's back on. Sealed our sump back up. Obviously put our exhaust clamp back on. So we've left it to set overnight, so that we don't wash away the sealer. So we'll get it down on the floor now, refill it with oil, scan for codes, and then we'll start it up and see what it gives. Right, back in the car now, rescan for codes. As we can see, 3401 is now a historic code, so it seems as though our oil pump swap with the solenoid has fixed the issue. I can now go back and clear these fault codes and then read our codes. The code is now gone. So we'll obviously fill it up with oil, hopefully fire up. We hopefully shouldn't get that fault code come back. So just gonna let the engine tick over for 20 minutes, check for leaks. But if you get that fault code, obviously it's better to change the oil pump while you're there. At the end of the day, it's just, it's a bit of a pain with that cable coming out. That's the bit where you're gonna struggle to get that back out of the hole, but it's worth doing. So if you get that fault code, that's what you need to change, that's what you need to do. So I hope it's helpful.